Welcome to Spirit Portal, a podcast with me, Erica Anderson. I'm an evidential medium and a spiritual seeker, always on a quest to more deeply understand the magic and mystery of this universe. Join me in an exploration of the realms, both seen and unseen. I'll share my insights and be joined by inspiring guests with their own unique perspectives on living in this quantum, magical universe. Hello, and welcome back to Spirit Portal. This is Erica. I'm your host, and thank you for being here with me today. Well, I just had something happen that normally doesn't happen, so I thought I'd record a podcast. Yeah, I just had someone not show up for a reading. Most people, unless it's an emergency, show up. So hopefully my client is okay. But since I have this extra time, I was like, I'll talk about something that I have been thinking about a lot lately, and that is one of the biggest blocks I see in developing mediums, and it's the inability to get out of their own way. So not a lack of ability, but it's hard for us as human beings, especially when we're learning something new, to get out of our own way, because it's like we always have this voice inside that's saying, well, what if I'm wrong? This doesn't make sense. What are they thinking of me? And it's not that that voice is a problem. Actually, doubt is a healthy aspect of mediumship. It keeps us discerning. It keeps us humble. But it's the ego. It's your ego trying to protect you. But in mediumship, that protection, that ego is what causes the issues. And so I want to, first of all, clarify what ego means, because I do think that we have an idea of thinking that ego means arrogance. And ego doesn't really mean arrogance. We need to kind of redefine it, because I do think it's a little bit misunderstood. Ego is the part of you that makes the reading about you. It's your thought process. It's the need to be right. It's the fear of being wrong. It's the desire to impress or to create a new identity for yourself. It becomes the attachment to the outcome in the reading and your attachment to having other people think you're something special. And often ego doesn't sound confident. It sounds like doubt, okay? It's the urge to interpret things instead of simply relaying things. It's all the ways that we try to make sense of things in our mind instead of letting things flow through us. And honestly, that is the key to good mediumship, is letting things flow through you and turning your mind off. One of the things that I teach my students over and over and over again, and I talk about it a lot, and I need to remind myself of this all the time too, because I'm still a human being. I still have an ego. Anybody that knows me knows this. But the core truth of mediumship that needs to be remembered every single day is that it's not about you as the medium. You are not special. And it's one of the most important things I teach my students. The reading is not about you showcasing yourself or being something grandiose. The reading is for the person in spirit and the person sitting across from you. You are the vessel, the bridge, the communicator, but you are not the source. You are not the one giving amazing information. I'll repeat that. You are not the one giving amazing information. The person in spirit is. You've hollowed yourself out enough that they can communicate through you. The moment you shift into how am I doing? Is this right? Or do I look good? You have stepped out of the power of your work. You've stepped out of the power of your connection to the person in spirit. And in some cases, stepped out of your integrity as the vessel, because you're trying to make the reading about you again. Over and over again, I learn as a medium and in my continued development that mediumship is a path of humility. It will humble you like nothing else will. Can you handle humility? Can you handle not just feeling small, but releasing identity? Again, a lot of mediums, when they start this path, myself included, want to be known as a medium, want to be calling themselves a medium when they're still just learning. And that's okay. There's an exciting aspect to that, right? Like you want to create an identity with it. But first, you have to learn how to release control so you can be the medium. You have to surrender to something greater and let go of your identity, right? Again, the mediumship reading is not about you. It's about you letting go of yourself so that you can be a channel of communication. Humility and mediumship is not diminishing yourself. It's not saying that you don't matter, because the vessel does matter, but it's creating enough space within you that something sacred can move through you. And that's the point of mediumship, right? It's not about you making up things and being the sacred person. You are the sacred space for sacred communication to flow. And so in mediumship, there's this constant interplay between the mind and the soul. Okay, the mind analyzes. We all know this. We all have experienced overanalyzation. I do every day. The mind judges and the mind edits things. And the mind will try to make sense of everything. Those things don't really work in mediumship, right? When we judge, edit, analyze, try to validate for ourselves, what are we doing? We're letting our ego take over and we're not being the vessel. The soul is going to feel, know, it's going to receive, and it's going to flow. The mind wants to understand your message, but your soul simply gives it. It's so much easier when you realize this, right? The mind gets in our way. And if you're developing medium, the mind is going to get in your way. That is the practice of the art of mediumship, is learning how to surrender, right? Over and over and over again. Not just once, not twice, not 10 times, not 100 times, every time. And that takes practice in of itself. And that is why we say that mediumship is building a muscle. You're learning, you're training yourself to do this. Yes, some of us have a much easier time and then are able to get into that flow state more quickly. That doesn't mean that that's someone who's better at mediumship. It means that that's someone who's accessed that ability, right? Mediumship then is to stay in that ability to flow. So this is where so many students get tripped up. They receive something really pure, a symbol or a memory or a feeling, and then immediately they want to jump in to interpret it, explain it, or correct it. And really what that's doing is that's interjecting the flow, right? You're interjecting your mind and you're projecting into the clean space of what's supposed to be flowing through you. Okay, so let's start with like over-interpreting. This is kind of where ego really likes to sneak in, and our mind really likes to sneak in. It's the most common way that the ego can kind of enter the reading. So say you're a student and you are in a practice reading and you get a random object. And instead of offering that object, I'm seeing a blue bicycle, you begin to shape it. Oh, this must mean that they were someone who was a cyclist, or this must mean that they had a child with a blue bicycle. And in that moment, the purity of the communication gets distorted because the mediumship is not about being clever or identifying or trying to make sense of something. It's about being clear. I see a blue bicycle. And then the sitter takes that information and says, yes, that makes sense to me. And they give it meaning. They interpret it for what their truth is in it, not you. There's another thing that I see a lot and that I experienced a lot when I was developing. There's something that happens along the development path that I think is really, really important to talk about, that's really not talked about that much. I think because it's a really delicate subject. But one of my previous mentors, Michael Mayo, who I adore, who's been on this podcast multiple times, was someone who spoke about it really clearly and really helped me understand that and really helped me find my own boundaries when I was developing as a young medium. He talks about this stage where you know enough, but you don't know enough. Okay? Where you can actually you kind of know enough to be dangerous, honestly, where you've opened up, you've had some experiences, you're receiving some information, and then all of a sudden you think you've got it. I've got this. I understand this. I know exactly what I'm doing. I can do it fully. I can do it for the public. I might even teach it right away. In reality, you have enough awareness to access the work, but you don't have enough depth or discernment or stability yet to fully hold it. And the ego can really step in at this point where you start wanting to create this identity where it's not arrogance, but it's a subtle certainty that's, at this stage can be a little bit dangerous because you could overinterpret messages and put meaning where there isn't. You may start projecting something as important that isn't coming through spirit, but coming through some part of you because you feel like you need to fill in the gaps. And you may speak with more authority than what you really have at this time. And this work has gravity. It really, really matters. It's not just about the medium. Again, it's about real people with real grief who need real healing. And so even though when we start building this awareness and we get really excited about it, the mature, responsible aspect is to grow alongside the ability. And I remember when I really understood what Michael meant, it was this realization of, oh, just because I can access something doesn't mean that I've mastered it. And that's an awareness, right? That's a turning point because that means instead of inflating the ego, it deepens your humility and it brings you back into a state of curiosity and reverence and care and allowing yourself to undergo this process at a slower pace where you're not trying to prove something to yourself or to others. And that is what makes a medium safe and clear and trustworthy. You don't need to speed this process along to be able to call yourself something. The reverence and the sanctity of this work is being trustworthy. And that starts with you. That starts with the medium. That starts with your development. Because the gravity of this work is the key in mediumship that I don't think can be emphasized enough. You really, really have to truly understand what this type of reading can hold for another person. Because when someone sits in front of you for a reading, it's not casual for them. It's not casual at all. I mean, maybe you have 10% of your clients who are like coming in for entertainment, but most of my clients are coming in deep grief, really searching, really needing hope, really wanting connection, and really wanting reassurance that their loved one is still with them or even just okay and safe. And this can be one of the most vulnerable spaces a person ever steps into. And what you say really freaking matters. How you say it matters. The space you hold matters. And this is not about any type of performance. It is not about getting it right. It is about being responsible and honest and clear and being authentic in the abilities that you present yourself with. Because even the subtle things can impact someone deeply, whether they're in a reading or whether you're talking about mediumship. And this is why that stage that we talked about, where you know enough, but maybe not enough to claim something, matters so much, because without awareness, the weight of this work, it's really easy to speak too soon, interpret too much, fill in the gaps, or overstep. And when you really feel the gravity of what you're doing, something is going to shift. You're going to slow down your development. You're going to listen carefully. You're going to respect what's coming through. And the respect is about the person in front of you, but also the people in spirit who are trusting you to communicate authentically to their loved one in grief. And so you realize that this is a sacred space, not because of you, but because of who is sharing information and why it's being shared. And that awareness is really big. And I remember when Michael said that, and it made me shift my whole experience of how I wanted to develop as a medium, but also project myself as a medium. So I just challenge you to think about that. The awareness shouldn't make you afraid. It should make you feel responsible and bring you into deeper integrity with your work, your communication, and really ultimately what allows people to feel safe with you and trust you. And so I think a lot of the foundation of mediumship is meditation. It's really built on it, and not all meditation is the same. And meditation really is different, and it's really essential both in development, but it's also a meditative experience where you're reflecting on yourself, what you're learning, how you're feeling challenges move through you, how you're facing humility, how you are experiencing, the interaction of yourself and your mind and others. So one of the core meditative practices for mediumship is sitting in the power, which is very different than like a transcendental meditation or a self-reflection meditation. Sitting in the power is one of the most important meditation practices for mediumship, and it's something that can be misunderstood because people don't like the word power or feeling like you're claiming power, but it's not about external power. It's about anchoring your power inward, sitting with your soul, sitting and expanding your awareness and becoming familiar with your own energy. That is power. It's not about performing or reaching, just like mediumship shouldn't be. It's about building an energy awareness of yourself and then expanding that energy to understand how that feels. And there's a power in the universe when you expand your energy, and it teaches you how to open and close your energy, but also to be enough as the vessel. And so often I see when students skip sitting in the power without this foundation, there's a tendency to seek externally before you're rooted internally. And that's such a parallel in life, isn't it? Like when we're seeking validation from others before we find our internal truth, or when we're trying to please others instead of like being authentic and knowing that we don't want to do something and we need to have a boundary instead. It's sitting in the power teaches so many things. It's a myriad of experience. And it is one of the most beautiful aspects of mediumship. And it's hard for people sometimes. The ego gets in the way there too. The ego wants to talk to us through it or tell us it doesn't matter, we don't need this. And it's one of the ancient tools of mediumship for a reason, because it works and it teaches us so much in the stillness of it. Another aspect of the meditative aspect of blending with spirit is attuning to spirit. It's a different kind of a meditation. It's where you begin to blend your energy with a spirit communicator, or you feel the presence of another consciousness, or you open yourself to communication before a reading. Sitting in the power is going to be more about like self-awareness and expansion, and attunement is about the relationship or relational awareness in a space. Okay. The key is that you cannot attune clearly if you are not stable within yourself first, because otherwise the mind fills the gaps, and that's that ego space getting in. So getting used to attuning to spirit is very helpful in keeping the ego out of the reading. And then there's traditional meditation, and that's like the stillness, that's like the awareness training, which I think when we mostly hear about meditation, we kind of get that background, like that Buddhist style, or, there's so many different styles of meditation that teach you to be still and aware. Breath awareness, mindfulness, quieting the mind. And those so incredible because this type of meditation allows you and trains you to observe without like being attached, right? You're watching the clouds float by, you're noticing your emotions coming, you're returning to your presence and into the present moment after like you've had a barrage of thoughts, interrupting you, and you create this well of inner stillness. And that is valuable because the stillness is where spirit speaks to us, whether it's in our own intuition or whether it's in a reading or whether it's in some sort of miraculous moment. But all three of these forms of meditation play a unique role for us. And it's so valuable as a strong foundation of mediumship, in my opinion. Traditional meditation is going to quiet your mind. Sitting in the power is strengthening your vessel, right? And attunement opens the communication. And when you do these together, you're going to have an experience as a medium that's going to be clear and grounded, receptive and trusting. And that, my friends, is what allows the ego to soften and the soul to lead the reading. So, things that I think about before I do readings, I set intentions. Let me be in service. What I do during a reading, I say exactly what I receive, no matter how weird it is. And I've gotten so much better over the years and not filtering or editing. I just stay with the sitter. And then when doubt arises, yeah, you're going to have doubt no matter how great of a medium you are, but you don't follow it. You keep going. It doesn't mean to stop. It means to continue without needing certainty. Just like life, we can't always be guaranteed how life is going to turn out. We don't know how these mediumship readings are going to turn out, but I do know that if we're trying to control it, it's not going to turn out good. The paradox of mediumship is that the more you try to be good, the less effective we are. And the more you surrender, the more accurate we are. It's crazy. It's crazy frustrating for us, especially when we're developing. But that's where the muscle building is. That's the practice. That is the ego release. And there's really no way around it. You have to keep walking through the fire of releasing your ego and reflecting on yourself, right? And it's not just in a reading, it's how are we interacting in daily life? Because that's the key to mediumship too. All of our readings are going to reflect our daily life, right? They're going to, you can't escape yourself because your weaknesses, your judgments, your biases, your ego that play out in your daily life are going to be your greatest enemies in your mediumship readings. And so if you want to be a great medium, you do have to work on all of the aspects of ego in your daily life too. So some good questions that you can ask yourself might be, where am I making this mediumship reading about me? Can I allow myself to be a vessel? And what would it really feel like to trust what I'm receiving? And then bring that into your daily life. When am I trying to make everything about my identity? What kind of stories am I creating versus what my real truth is? Can I allow myself to feel like I'm enough just being who I am? Mediumship is not about proving that you can do something extraordinary, even though it is extraordinary. It's extraordinarily beautiful to be the vessel of communication. What mediumship is about being present enough, humble enough, and open enough to let something sacred move through you, but also to be humble enough, vulnerable enough, and open enough to trust yourself in the moment that it's going to be okay and you don't have to try to fix something to make it better. I think that developing mediumship is one of the most beautiful, exciting, sacred times that any person can go through because of the vulnerability, because of the doubts that come up, because of the identity erasers and the experiencing of rediscovering who you are as a soul, as a person, and healing so many of the stories that we've created around ourselves to protect ourselves. It is an exciting time. To me, it's something that I've been through, and I had a lot of ego work to go through myself. I really did. And so I love walking this journey with students with unbelievable respect that I hold for them and every step in every space that they're going through. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast episode, because so often we think something's wrong with us. And it's not that something's wrong with us as we're developing, it's that we're healing right alongside of our development. So don't rush it. Don't try to create an identity for yourself right away. Allow yourself to go through the process with humility. Allow yourself to go through the process with giving yourself a ton of grace and allowing yourself not to have an identity around it already so that you don't feel pressure to perform when really you're supposed to be making mistakes. You're supposed to be learning things the hard way. That is the path of developing mediumship. It is not for the faint of heart. And anyone who chooses to walk this path I commend and I congratulate. And I say, I'm excited to see what's going to unfold for you because it's going to be something great no matter what. All right. With that, I am going to say adieu and send you all love. Have a beautiful day. Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Spirit Portal. If you like this episode, please help me grow, share it with your friends, and have a beautiful day.